Later, she met someone who was a much better fit, someone who aligned with her values and life purpose. My personal advice: if you're in a situation where someone is leading you on but not following through, don't take it personally. Instead, view it as a divine redirection. God's ways are higher than our ways, and sometimes the closed doors are just as important as the open ones. It's not about rejection, it's about protection. Also, when you feel rejected, remember that it's an opportunity for spiritual growth. You don't have to have all the answers now, but you can trust that God is always working behind the scenes. In those moments of confusion and hurt, lean into your faith and remember that God has something far greater planned for you. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever experienced this kind of situation, where someone lost interest and you thought it was your fault? I challenge you to reconsider. What if that shift wasn't rejection but a sign of God's love for you, protecting your heart for something better? Trust His plan. The right relationship will come in His perfect timing. Let this be a reminder: when God removes something from your life, He's making room for something much better. Trust the process, trust His timing, and trust that His love is guiding you, even in the moments that feel like setbacks. Have you ever stopped to reflect on the things in your life that didn't work out, especially when it comes to relationships? Have you ever thought to thank God for the people who didn't stay or the connections that didn't materialize? It may sound strange, but there's so much wisdom in recognizing that God sees things we can't. He knows the true intentions of people's hearts, even when their actions appear kind, flattering, or sincere. Sometimes, when someone leads you on but doesn't fully commit, it's not a reflection of your worth or value, it's a reflection of their character. God doesn't want His chosen ones to settle for relationships or people who offer only part of what they could be. He has something far greater in mind for you, and being led on is often His way of telling you, wait, I have better for you. I understand how easy it is to feel discouraged when someone you're interested in starts dating someone else or shifts their focus elsewhere. The heartache feels like rejection, and it's tough not to take it personally. But have you ever considered how much heartbreak God might be saving you from by not allowing that connection to fully unfold? When someone isn't fully invested in you, it's a sign that this is not the kind of relationship God intends for you. He's teaching you to value yourself in the way He values you. Think about it: God sees your worth, and He wants you to see it too. He wants you to be in relationships where you are cherished, respected, and prioritized. Being led on, even though it's painful, is often a form of divine protection. God knows that a half-hearted connection would only hold you back from experiencing the true love, care, and fulfillment that He has prepared for you. It can be heartbreaking when someone walks away, especially when you've invested emotionally and have imagined a future together. But when people walk out of your life, it is often a sign that their role in your story was meant to be temporary. Sometimes their departure is what makes room for someone or something better suited for your journey. Think about it: if someone walks away, it's often God making space for something more aligned with His purpose for you. I've heard countless stories of people who were deeply crushed after being led on or after a relationship that seemed promising fell apart. Yet, months or years later, they looked back with gratitude. They thanked God for removing that person from their life, because they now see that the relationship wasn't what they truly needed or deserved. Have you ever experienced something like this? It's like the fog lifts and you suddenly realize that the person you thought you were meant to be with wasn't who they seemed to be. The truth about their character came to light, and you began to understand why things didn't work out. This is God's protection. He has a way of showing us what we need to see, even if it's painful at first. Trust that He is always working behind the scenes to guide you toward His best plan for your life. He's protecting your heart from relationships or people who would hold you back or cause you harm. And even though you might not see it in the moment, everything that seems like a setback is actually setting you up for something better. As someone who has experienced similar heartbreaks in my own life, I can honestly say that looking back, I'm thankful for the times things didn't work out. At the time, it felt like a major blow to my ego, and I wondered what I had done wrong. But as time passed, I realized that those experiences were part of God's loving intervention. He was protecting me from deeper pain and helping me grow into the person I needed to be, to recognize the love and relationships that truly align with my purpose. The bigger picture. When someone doesn't commit or leads you on, it's not about them rejecting you, it's about God redirecting you to the people and the path that will bring you closer to your true purpose. We often forget that God's plan is always greater than our own understanding. When things don't work out the way we imagined, it's because God is clearing the path for us. He's showing us what isn't meant for us, even if it's hard to see in the moment. In moments of heartbreak or disappointment, try to shift your perspective. Instead of focusing on what you've lost, focus on what God is saving you from. Trust that His love for you is greater than any temporary pain you feel. He is preparing you for something more aligned with His divine plan, something that will bring you peace, growth, and the love you deserve. Personal reflection. If you've ever experienced a situation where someone led you on but didn't commit, I want to encourage you to look at that experience as God's protection, not rejection. Take a moment and reflect how much heartache would you have faced if that person had continued to pursue you, only to turn away later? How much time and emotional energy would you have invested in something that was never meant for you? Remember that God is always working to protect your heart and guide you towards something greater. Trust that everything is unfolding as it should. You are worthy of love that values you wholeheartedly and doesn't leave you questioning your worth. Don't settle for anything less than God's best for your life. When the doors close, trust that He's opening better ones, even if you can't see them yet. God knows what's best for you. Trust His timing, trust His redirection, and most of all, trust that He is working behind the scenes for your good. Have you ever prayed for clarity about a relationship, only to watch that person show their true colors shortly afterward? It can be incredibly disheartening, but I want to share something important with you. This is not a coincidence. When someone leads you on and then shifts their focus to someone else, it's often God answering your prayer in a way you didn't expect. In those moments, God is revealing the truth so you can move forward without lingering doubts or unnecessary regret. It's not easy to accept, but it's a sign of His deep love and care for you. I've learned that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, and that's one of the hardest lessons we often have to face. God places some people on our path to teach us valuable lessons and help us grow, while others are meant to journey alongside us for a longer period. When someone leads you on and then moves on, it is a clear sign that their time in your life has ended. It's painful, no doubt, but you must trust that God is preparing something far greater for you. His plans are always better than anything we could imagine. Every time someone walks away, it actually brings you closer to the person or purpose that God has in store for you. This isn't just about finding a romantic partner, it's about aligning your relationships with God's divine purpose for your life. The clarity that comes when someone shows you they are not willing to invest in you is a gift. Thank God for that clarity, even if it doesn't feel like a gift in the moment. Think about how many times you've poured your heart out to God about a relationship, only to feel like your prayers went unanswered. It's frustrating, right? When you believe something is meant to be, and it doesn't materialize, you might find yourself questioning whether God is listening or whether you're asking for the wrong thing. I want to encourage you with this truth: unanswered prayers are not ignored prayers. When a relationship doesn't come together despite your heartfelt prayers, it's not because God is indifferent to your desires. It's because He is protecting you from something you can't yet see. Sometimes God isn't saying no, He's saying, I have something better for you. I understand how frustrating it can be when you feel deeply connected to someone or think a relationship is meant to work out, only for it to fall apart. In those moments you might wonder, why would God withhold this from me? But I've come to realize that God's plans are always for our good, even when they don't align with our own expectations. Unanswered prayers, in fact, can be some of the most profound blessings. They are often God's way of redirecting us toward a path that leads to greater spiritual growth and deeper alignment with His will. What if God is preparing you for something far greater than you could ever imagine? Think about it. God knows every detail of your life, including what lies ahead. He sees the challenges you will face, the joys you will experience, and the relationships that will shape your future. When He withholds a relationship, it's not out of cruelty, it's out of love. This might be hard to hear if you're in a place where you've been waiting for something to unfold, or if you've prayed countless times for the relationship to come together. I've been there too, feeling the disappointment, wondering if I'm doing something wrong. But I want to assure you that when God closes a door, it's not to punish you, it's to protect you and guide you toward what is truly best for your spiritual journey. God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense to us. He doesn't want you to settle for anything less than what aligns with His greater plan for you. The relationships you're longing for will come in their due time, but only after you've been refined and made ready for them. God uses these times of waiting and unanswered prayers to prepare your heart for what's to come, shaping you into someone who is ready to receive the love and relationships that reflect His goodness. I encourage you to trust this process, even when it's difficult. God is not withholding love from you. Instead, He's working behind the scenes, aligning the right people and experiences with your divine destiny. This process is not just about romantic relationships, it's about learning to trust God more deeply, to trust His timing, and to align your life with His greater purpose. Each unanswered prayer is a reminder that God has a plan, and it's far better than anything we could design on our own. So instead of focusing on what didn't work out, focus on the bigger picture. Remember that God sees you, loves you, and has something far better ahead. And in those moments when it feels like your prayers are being ignored, take a deep breath and trust. God is still listening, still working, and still guiding you toward the relationships and the life that are meant for you. He will never lead you down the wrong path. In closing, let me remind you that unanswered prayers are often His most profound answers. Trust in His redirection, trust in His love, and trust that He is always working for your highest good, even when it doesn't look the way you expected. Rest in the peace of knowing that God is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Have you ever thought that God's no is not a rejection, but actually a powerful form of protection? It's hard to accept, especially when we feel disappointed or confused by unanswered prayers, but often those unanswered prayers are God's way of shielding us from pain or disappointment we can't foresee. There's a verse in the Bible, 1 John 5 verse 14, that says, "If we ask anything according to His will, He hears us." Notice the key phrase, according to His will. This is where many of us get tripped up. We pray for things that we believe are good, but they may not align with God's greater plan for our lives. And when this happens, God gently redirects us, not to punish us, but to foster our spiritual growth. It's not that God doesn't care about your desires, it's that He has a bigger, more beautiful plan that you might not fully understand yet. A relationship that doesn't work out, even after fervent prayer, might be part of this process. In the moment, it's easy to feel rejected, but what if God is using that disappointment to deepen your trust in Him? His no isn't about rejecting your desires, it's an invitation to trust Him more fully, to release your grip on control and allow Him to lead you toward what's truly best. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself if your prayer aligns with God's greater purpose for your life? When things don't happen as we expect, it's natural to think that God isn't listening, but that's not the truth. God hears every prayer, every tear, every hope you lift up to Him. He's always listening, even if it feels like He's silent. When your prayer for a relationship goes unanswered, God is teaching you something invaluable: patience and trust. He's asking you to surrender your will to His and to lean into His guidance. The waiting period isn't wasted time, it's a time for you to draw closer to Him and to prepare your heart for His blessings. Think back to a relationship that didn't come together the way you hoped. At the time, it might have felt like a huge disappointment, but now, with perspective, you can see it wasn't meant to be. God closed that door to protect you. He knew something you didn't. He knew that the person wasn't the right fit for your life, your purpose, or your spiritual growth. His will is always about what's best for you, even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. Trust that His timing is perfect, even when it feels delayed. There's a beauty in surrendering your desires to God's will. It's not easy, especially when you've prayed so fervently for a relationship to work out, but as chosen ones, we understand that God's ways are higher than ours. His plans are always better than our own. When you let go of a relationship that isn't materializing, you are actually creating space for something even better, something that aligns with God's purpose for your life. It's hard to let go of someone or something you've invested time and emotion into, but God is always working behind the scenes, guiding us toward a future that reflects His love. I've seen this in my own life too. There were times I prayed for a relationship that seemed perfect on the surface, only to see it fall apart. At the time, I was devastated, but in hindsight, I see how God was protecting me. He knew the relationship wasn't healthy, and He knew it wasn't part of His plan for me. It's often in these moments of heartache that we see the greatest blessings come through. Unanswered prayers are often the clearest signs of God's divine intervention. He's saying, "Wait and see what I have in store for you." And it's not just about relationships, it's about the growth that happens in the waiting. God uses these moments to refine us, to shape our hearts, and to help us become the person He wants us to be. Consider this: God knows the desires of your heart, and more importantly, He knows what is best for you in the long run. Sometimes the path to our ultimate blessing requires us to walk through a season of disappointment or rejection. It doesn't mean God is punishing us, it means He's protecting us from something or someone that could harm us in ways we can't see. In my life, I've learned that the greatest blessings often come wrapped in disappointments. And it's not just about finding a romantic partner, but about aligning every aspect of your life with God's divine plan. The more you trust in God's perfect timing, the more you realize that everything is unfolding as it should, even if it feels uncomfortable at times. So when you find yourself frustrated with unanswered prayers, remember this: God is not ignoring you. He's answering you in ways that you might not understand right now. Trust that every no or delay is a divine redirect towards something greater, something that will align with your deepest purpose. God is not withholding good things from you, He's guiding you toward the best things, according to His will. Take a moment to reflect on the relationships that didn't work out in the past, and thank God for closing those doors. There is so much peace in trusting that He knows better than we do, and His plans for us are far beyond what we could ever ask or imagine. Sometimes, unanswered prayers can feel like a setback. But what if I told you they were actually preparation for something much greater? In fact, they are often God's way of shaping us into the person He knows we are meant to be. He's refining our faith, character, and perspective, teaching us that we can trust His timing more than our own. God doesn't just give us what we think we want, He gives us what we truly need, what will bring us closer to His perfect will and align us with His greater purpose. I've come to believe that when a relationship doesn't materialize, it's not necessarily a loss, it's often a gain in disguise. I know it doesn't feel that way at first, especially when your heart is set on something, but looking back, I've realized that God was saving me from heartache, or maybe even something that wasn't aligned with my path. God uses these moments to teach us to trust in His provision, helping us focus on our spiritual growth instead of our own desires. The season of waiting may feel like you've been forgotten, but in reality, it's a season of being refined for His purpose. Every unanswered prayer is bringing you closer to God's perfect will, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Instead of holding on to what didn't work out, we need to embrace the possibilities of what could be. Every time you trust God with your heart, you're one step closer to receiving the love and relationships that truly reflect His heart. That's why surrendering to God's will isn't about defeat, it's about preparation for what's best. Now, I want to ask you something important. After everything we've talked about, have you noticed any red flags you've been ignoring? Are there unanswered prayers in your life that now make sense, in hindsight? This is not just about recognizing the wrong people in your life, but also about aligning yourself with God's will and trusting His plan for your heart. I understand how difficult it can be to let go, especially when you've invested emotionally in a relationship or prayed hard for something to work out. But what if the very thing you're holding on to is preventing you from receiving God's best for your life? Every closed door is, in fact, a step closer to the blessings God has prepared for you. It might not feel like that in the moment, but with time and reflection, we begin to see that God's plans are always better than ours. Every unanswered prayer, every relationship that doesn't come together, is His way of guiding us towards something greater. There's a powerful freedom in surrendering your relationships, your desires, and your heart to God. It's not about resigning yourself to a life of unfulfilled dreams, it's about releasing control so that He can lead you toward a future that's far more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. That's the kind of faith and trust God is calling us to have. When you release your heart to Him, He will guide you toward relationships that honor Him and bring peace and joy into your life. So I challenge you to make today the day you fully surrender your relationships and desires to God's timing and plan. Write in the comments, "I trust God's timing," as an act of faith, as a declaration that you trust His plans for you are better than anything you can conceive. This journey isn't easy, and it's not always clear at first. But remember, you are not alone. God is always with you, guiding you, protecting you, and opening doors that lead you closer to His perfect will. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to share it with others who might need the encouragement too. We are all walking this journey together, and there's so much power in a community of believers who support and uplift one another. So I leave you with this. Do you see these signs in your own life? Have you recognized moments when God was gently guiding you away from something or someone that wasn't meant for you? Take a moment to reflect on your own journey and see how God has been shaping you, protecting you, and preparing you for the beautiful future He has planned for you. Remember, His timing is perfect, and when you trust Him with your heart, you'll find peace in the journey even when it doesn't unfold the way you expected.